Hi everyone. Don't mind me, I'm just quickly drinking my water. I hope everyone's doing well today on this lovely Tuesday. It's getting cold out. It's getting super cold out. But yeah, hello. I hope people are doing well. Yeah, I'll let some stragglers make their way to their seats really quick before we get started. Awesome. Welcome to episode 3 of Overtures. Sorry, just getting something pulled up. Okay, awesome. Welcome to episode 3. I'm so excited to have you all, and I'm so excited to have this guest on today. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. My guest today is currently in their final year studying stage management at Pace University here in New York City. They hope to graduate and pursue a career in production management and technical direction within the New York City theater community. I'll admit I have not known them very long, but they are seriously one of the most welcoming, kind, and hardworking people that I know. And they're always down to clown on Animal Crossing. So, without further ado, here is my good friend Rey Hill.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. I'm so excited to have you on. This is like my first some person that I've known that's within the theater community already. Like all my other guests have been Wagner people so far, so it's so nice to I don't know, get some fresh blood in here, I guess is the
Absolutely.
better phrasing for it. But yeah, how are you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I just finished up a day of classes. It was our last day before Thanksgiving break, so it's exciting to have a break.
Yes, absolutely. I always remember everyone leaving early, going home for Thanksgiving. I'm like, wait, how did you manage to do that? Like, what? I'm always the person who has the last class on the last day before Thanksgiving break. That's how it
Yep.
always was for me. But yeah, in general, you don't necessarily celebrate American Thanksgiving though. So I guess it's not as big of a deal for
Yeah,
you
usually my
as
family and
most
I
people.
celebrate Canadian Thanksgiving. I do celebrate American Thanksgiving occasionally with my American side of the family, but I've always grown up also celebrating Canadian. So
Yeah.
that happened last month. We're done with
Yeah.
that.
We're done with that one. This is just the other Thanksgiving.
This is the bonus Thanksgiving.
The bonus Thanksgiving. I love that. I like phrasing for it. I love that. So, to give a little context for viewers watching, how do we know each other? We work together. That's so fun. We work together at Theater Row, having a grand old time. Winnie the Pooh's there. Go check it out. Lots of things coming in and out. Yeah, lots of fun stuff going on at Theater Row. But yeah, so getting into the interview itself, Ray, how did you first get started in theater?
Um, I actually started out as an actor, as most
Oh,
people do.
little baby
Um,
Ray.
baby tiny child Ray. I actually even further than that, I started as a dancer. I started tap dancing in like kindergarten
Oh,
and tapped all the way through to like 5th grade where my after school program finally let the 5th grader or 4th graders start to act in the after school plays.
mm.
And I played the lead in a show that I don't remember the name of. I just remember I sang the first song. And then I also, right before I moved to Boston, which is where I'm more recently from, I played Toto in The Wizard of Oz.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah, and then I moved to the suburban Boston area and acted and danced. And then when I was in high school, I got cut from our spring musical, and I said, "Screw you all! I'm joining tech," and never looked back.
I love the commitment there. You're just like, nope, I'm done.
I was like, the first musical I got cut from, nope, done. Acting career gone.
I love that for you. Two follow-up questions. One, how was playing Toto? How'd that go?
Considering I have an incredibly vague memory of it, like keeping in mind I was 9, I think at the time. Um, I think I moved right before the performances, so I think I wasn't even there for the performances.
That's so funny.
Um, And so I just remember running around my school's basement classroom that we used as a rehearsal studio, playing Toto, and then I moved, and I never know what happened to the show.
That's so
I
funny.
was 9.
You were like, I don't remember.
Yep.
But oh my goodness. And then so you said it was from like an after school program, like getting involved in like with like dance and things like that. What did your parents like put you into dance classes growing up, or was it something that you were like, "Oh, I want to do that?"
I started tap actually again through my school because I actually grew up in the city on the Upper West Side.
Gotcha.
Um, we had a tap teacher come in and teach a bunch of elementary schoolers tap
Mm.
every Tuesday, I think it was. And that was like I think an optional after school program that you could do that I took part in a couple times a week.
I love that. I think that's so special too, because I feel like having that kind of like, who else gets the chance to just like try tap?
That was
You
I
know,
think the
like
really good thing that got me into it because then when I moved to Boston, I didn't have that like opportunity to really dance through school, so I had to go outside of school. Like I could still do theater through school, like we did our middle school shows and stuff. But I had to dance elsewhere because it wasn't just like there as an option for me.
yeah, I've never had like dance within school. So like every time like people like mention that like, oh yeah, like at my dance class at school, I'm like, oh, what a dream. What a dream that would have been. But no, I love that. That's so cute. So obviously that's how you got into theater and things like that. But what
Yes.
was your overture? What was your light bulb moment of like, oh, this is what I want to do here in theater? Because obviously you studied stage management, but now you're leaning more towards the production technical side of things. So, what was that moment of like, oh, yes, that?
I think specifically the thing that motivated me to pursue a career in technical theater. I when I quit acting and started doing tech, because I was just kind of like that freshman, I had no idea what I was doing. My tech director looked at me and went, "Do you want to stage manage?" And I went, "I don't know what that is, but sure." Um, I just started stage managing just for the fun of it, and then he just kind of looked at me and he was like, "You like making things, right?" And I go, "I feel like this is going to get me in trouble, but yes." And so he put me on as the props designer for my sophomore year main stage show of Beauty and the Beast. And of course, that's kind of a really difficult show to start as the props designer.
Yeah,
And I made the Magic Rose um,
which we have
with
pictures of, which
I
I'm
do have
so excited about.
yes. I made that with a $50 budget, never having made props before,
What?
and, like, seeing it, like, work on opening night, I was like, "This is so cool, and I wanna do this." So then I kept going, and I, like, really started pursuing, like, specialty props. So
Mm,
I did, like, the razor the slit throat effect for Sweeney Todd. I did the chalkboard for Matilda, and that's kinda
mm,
like what I keep getting brought on to do. Um, I made like the witch's orb for Wizard of Oz for a different high school than the one that I went to.
that's fun.
Um, just because I knew the tech director on it and he went, "I have no one who knows how to make this. Can you help?" And I was like,
You're
"Yeah,
yeah,
sure." Like
we'll figure it out.
I was like 16. I was like, "Yeah, I'll make some props." Like, "Sure."
Oh my gosh. Well,
Um,
and that's crazy that like now that I'm hearing this, like that was some of your first stuff. Cause like we're gonna go through it later. We're gonna share a screen, we're gonna have a grand old time, but like they're so good. Like the Beauty and the Beast rose is stunning.
I still have
Like
it in my basement.
ugh, as you should. You should keep that because it's absolutely gorgeous. And I'm so excited to look at it
Thank
later.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, no. And in terms of like going in, not necessarily going in, you're already in the theater community, but when people ask you like, "Oh, what do you do?" Do you still call yourself a stage manager sometimes? Do you call yourself production manager? Where's that title for you?
I say I am a trained stage manager because that is like genuinely what I'm trained to do.
Absolutely.
because I was thrown into stage management, but also was covering a lot of different roles throughout high school, where that was really my only tech theater experience. Like, I never really worked professionally before I had to decide what I wanted to do with my life.
Right.
I had only done stage management, but the kind of stage management that I did in high school was a little bit different from what happens in the real world, as I think it is in most school programs.
Absolutely.
The stage manager doesn't actually stage manage 99% of the time. So then I got to school and I was like, this is really cool and I really like doing this, but I hate sitting in rehearsals. So the closest thing that I could do, where I could still like get really down into spreadsheets, like get really down into like the meat of the show, but not really work from a design perspective because I don't see myself as like a capital C creative person. I can really I can execute designs really well. I cannot make them very well. Unless I'm told exactly what I need to do, which is what props is. So I figured out that production management and technical direction really aligned a lot more with what I want to do.
Right.
And because I've never been the production manager or technical director on something, I'm currently the assistant tech director at Theater Row, where we work together. And I have worked as the assistant production manager on some shows. I don't feel yet comfortable enough to call myself a production manager.
No, that totally makes sense. But I do want to commend you on the fact that like you have such people person skills. Yeah, you have so much people skills that like when you are working in your ATD position, like watching you, I'm like, oh yeah, they own the place. Like they know exactly what they're doing. So like while you don't necessarily feel fully confident in like giving yourself that title yet, like know that like, oh, okay, this person knows what they're doing. And it's
Thank
really
you.
cool to watch and see. Yeah, no, absolutely. And also just by getting to work in like all those other fields of like being the props designer, being the stage manager, you know how to talk to people and how to collaborate. And
Mhm.
I think I've mentioned this in like other episodes too, like being able to wear all those different hats is so essential and just makes everything flow so much easier in a collaborative process like that.
Oh, I totally agree with you because I'm still in school. I still interact with a lot of people in different disciplines who are also still in an educational environment. And
Yeah.
I talk to some of the directors in my directing class and I'm like, hey, take design classes, take a stage management class. And then they come back and they're like, I had no idea that that's what your jobs were. Like, I
Yeah.
had no idea what happens on the other side of the process. And I think it's just so important for other
Oh,
people to have that background knowledge.
absolutely. Like I remember we were doing what we called originals, which is where the playwriting class wrote 10-minute plays for the directing class. And then it was all students who designed it and performed in it. And it was just like one part of the year. And like that experience of our teacher going like, okay, talk to your lighting designer, tell them what you want as a director, and going, oh, that's different. Because if you can give them the specificity of like, warm versus cool at a certain line or like things like that, it's just going to make that process so much easier. And
Exactly.
knowing the lingo, the language between departments is so important. And I think you have a really great grasp on that, obviously, having worked in these different areas.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, being that we're talking about all these fun things that you've been doing, you, as a stage manager, take really amazing pride in good paperwork. So, you know what
Yes.
we're gonna start with?
We'll
Looking at
start with
the
the
bad
paperwork.
paperwork. And, and as the stage manager you are, what's great is that you made me a Dropbox of all the different things we were gonna look at today,
It was
which
too
is
much to send in an email. I'm sorry.
no, I love how organized it is. It's just so much fun, and I made this mistake last time. I have to actually add the screen to the screen. It's great. There we go. Now we can actually see what we're looking at. So first we got to start with the bad paperwork. So we have, which should we look at first? The props or run sheet?
Let's start with the run sheet. That one's a little bit more meaty.
Yeah.
So, for context, this was for a show called The Complete History of America Abridged. Also by the same guys who did the complete history of Shakespeare Abridged.
Oh,
And
cool.
and we did this show runway style, so we had audience members on both sides of the stage.
Right.
And I was the assistant stage manager for this, which means I ran the backstage and I ran the deck, while the PSM was calling the show. And I was just told to make a run sheet, and I had no idea what I was doing because again, this was my first show I had ever stage managed.
Yeah.
And this was my attempt, and I we did a project in one of my stage management classes where we had to show bad paperwork and compare it to good paperwork, and this is the example I used for bad paperwork because I just like making fun of myself.
But here's the thing though. For a high schooler to put together a run sheet, this is actually pretty clear and pretty straightforward. And I will say I appreciate about this, but being that you are a trained stage manager and I am not, out of curiosity, what are the things that you immediately see that are like, oh no, this is horrible paperwork?
Um, well, I would say first of all the casual language because it's very, very well written for people who know me and people who know my cadence of speaking. If you don't know that, then we're going to have a little bit of a problem. And also, it's really geared towards as a reference point for people who know the show and who run the show
Right.
rather than what a run sheet should be, which is if I got hit by a bus, can someone take my place with the paperwork I made?
Right. Which is, I think, something that we don't realize goes into all that work on something like a run sheet.
Hmm.
Like, because I know for me, it's like, oh, yeah, let me just jot down the things I have to move. But like, no, these run sheets are created so that quite literally you'd be like, you're going to do the show. This paperwork tells you exactly how it goes.
There was one time I ran a show where there was one point where I just started lighting a pathway during a quick change with my flashlight. And the one day I didn't do it, the actors be like, "Why weren't you holding the flashlight today?" And I realized like how much really has to go into a run sheet. Like if I start doing something during tech, I need to be prepared to do it every day because it will
Absolutely.
be expected, and the day that that flashlight is not there is going to be the day someone trips over a cable and
Yeah.
smashes their face open.
And it's
Um
also something like we don't realize like what people mark as cues in their own brain. Like, oh, when someone gets up to leave at this point, I should get ready for my next entrance. Even though it's not
mhm.
necessarily something that's a part of the show, just the habits we have get instilled in us.
Yeah, absolutely. So like when I look at this piece of paperwork, it's okay. Like I will say it's
Mhm.
not the worst piece of paperwork I have ever seen, and I don't mean to like pat myself on the back or anything. But you can see in the top right corner, I drew a little diagram of the
Mhm.
stage. And then again, there's some lingo because this was in our black box theater where one of the walls shared the wall with our wood shop and the other wall
Um,
shared the wall with the auditorium. Hence why you can see shop and odd as key points to understand how we're situated.
that
So
makes
then you
sense.
can then see upstage, downstage, stage left, and stage right because it's like a grounding point. But
Yeah.
then when you go in and you take a look at some of the cues, I did not list one spike color. I don't think any of this stuff even was spiked, which was also a mistake. Um and there's no like super clear directions. Like
I like the trigger cue right here. The singers will probs start before this is done.
that yeah, and I mean, I think they all started before the scene change was done. But like saying take the small pedestal with maps off in Q4, where is it going off? Because we have entrances on all four corners of the stage.
Right.
Where is it going off? Who's taking it off? Um, how how do I differentiate between the first small pedestal with maps and the third small pedestal with maps? Like,
Right, because sometimes there's a set that has like multiple variations of the same item. Like,
yeah, and the second and third cues, the trigger line is the exact same.
Right. Right.
But
I see
it's
that now.
but knowing the show, I know that that trigger line happened multiple times.
Mm,
Um, but that's in my brain, I know that that has happened, so I know how to differentiate, but
yeah.
someone taking my place would not know how to do that.
Now, I believe we have a version of your what we consider a good run sheet. And boy,
Yes.
it's terrifying and I love it.
It I will say, so this was actually not for a real show that I did. This is for a paper project that
Right.
we did in the pandemic times where my stage management professor coped the best he could with what we were given, and he put on an entire show. Like, he set up a Zoom station with Legos
Oh my god.
and built a set out of Legos and, like, did a show and had us create the paperwork for it. Like
That's crazy.
this man, like, did blocking with Lego Darth Vader, and it worked. I
Oh
hate
my
to say that it
gosh.
worked. So this was our run sheet for our Lego version of our Lego Star Wars version of Lucky Stiff. Which if you don't know Lucky Stiff, it's essentially Weekend at Bernie's the musical.
I love it. And
Um,
then all on top of it being done with Lego Star Wars.
being done with Lego Star Wars, like everyone was a Lego Star Wars character. And yes, my 50 something Chris, if you're watching this at any point, and I butcher your age, I'm so sorry. My 50 something year old Broadway stage management manager of a professor just playing with Legos in his house. The highlight of the pandemic for me.
Absolutely. And what I love
Um
is that this like all start like the top of the paperwork starts with like where's everything located preset and then the chaos begins of like okay, act 1 scene, etc.
yes, that was something that I had never really done. And yeah, I had a preset list, but then again, there's some things you just kind of expect about presetting a show where, oh, you only think about the hard things, but
Mhm.
what if I need to think about the fact that I have to bring in the show curtain? Like,
Yeah.
I have to bring in the curtain, and that is part of my preset. Um,
And you have quick changes on here too.
that was another thing we had to figure out because we were given, like, we had to do actor tracking, so we had to do an entrance and exit chart, time the quick changes, figure out where to put who in what quick change, whether it was going to be in in the basement dressing rooms or the stage left booth. It was, or the stage right booth, I think it was actually on, for quick changes, and we had to like actually map that all out and figure out what we had to do.
That is such a like this is an amazing assignment and I think this version of the paperwork really goes to show how much like thought and work goes into the hurting of everyone because like to a point that's a lot of what stage management is making sure like everyone's going in the right direction so that we can all work together
Yeah,
obviously
and if you
and
go back into it, I'm going to
yes
show you a really funny actually trick that I thought was really fun. If you
please
look all the way on the left at the sort column, I
yes
gave you a PDF, not an Excel document, but with an
Mhm.
Excel document. I created this as a table so I could select only one or two departments. That
Mm.
way I could only give the props team a run sheet with their stuff on it and the wardrobe team only something with their wardrobe stuff on it. And it saves so much time because you don't have to create this document multiple and multiple and multiple times.
Yeah, and that way you can just print out the run sheet essentially for each department and call it a day without breaking the camel's back trying to
Exactly.
recreate the document. That's
Hmm.
so smart and so cool. And this is why you you have studied to be a professional stage manager. Like you this is what you learn and it's amazing. So going back to bad paperwork,
Yes.
we have the preset props.
Again, not the worst piece of paperwork that has ever been created. The diagram, as you'll notice, is different
Yes,
from the first one.
which is
I
so
don't
funny.
I don't know why. I genuinely don't know. I could not tell you. But it's different.
And
So,
also the shop and the audience switch sides.
yep. And that is the first red flag because paperwork has to be, every piece of paperwork has to just be in a common language. So having the same description, having, rather than saying upstage center, I labeled every entrance as 1, 2, 3, and 4, so I could just say offstage 4.
Yeah.
But you kind of look at it and it doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah, because
It
like
tells you the
permission
bare
to be put
minimum.
away, but where?
Yeah, but
And
where?
with one chair, which chair?
Exactly. And like it looks kind of funny again as an outsider looking at any of this paperwork because I chose the two most ridiculous shows I possibly could. But if you look at it and it's like, oh, the Berlin Wall, the trenches. What does that mean and
You're like,
how?
you're like, what show is this? What's happening?
Yeah. And it's interesting. There has to be some other way, like Monopoly houses. I can tell you from my own brain that there are 12 of them in 3 different colors and 2 different sizes. And I did not say anything about what colors go where, what colors go
Right.
off stage what. Like, it doesn't give you any information.
And then going to, because I think we have a version, yeah, of this prop list.
Yes.
This one is wild,
This, I will admit, it is a slightly different kind of paperwork.
but it's beautiful.
It is essentially an entire props list and a props tracking sheet that also deals with presets, because there is props presets that have to happen during the show.
Yeah.
Um, so this is like the first piece of props paperwork that a stage manager would create. But this one has, as you can tell, a lot more information.
Yes. The
Um,
research photos I really appreciate and enjoy.
and that's something that it took me so long to figure out why we needed that, but if I have a certain dialogue with a director in the room as a stage manager and I say, "Okay, we need a shoe bench." And like we go like, "Oh yeah, like the ones that you see in like DSW with the mirrors and like the." I'm not going to have that same dialogue with the props person. So being able to
Right.
find a picture of like approximately what the director is envisioning saves so much time and money.
Absolutely. And what's also wild to perhaps someone that hasn't hasn't looked at this kind of paperwork like an actor per se, like this document is 9 pages for the entire show.
Oh, did I actually do the entire show for that? I know I only did up to like scene 4 for the run
Oh,
sheet.
maybe. Let me take a look. I just assumed it was the whole show, me being an actor.
I think it is.
Um,
It might actually only be act 1.
yeah, no, I think this is only act 1 and it's 9 whole pages. Like that shows you how much detail goes into this and it's insane.
And like there's all kinds of like little Easter eggs. Like the red bits are repeated props. So props that are not new, and if you zoom in pretty much anywhere actually, if you see any props that are in italics, so if you go down to 1.9 Club Continental, you see menu 1A, 1B, chair
Right.
1A and 1B. Those are all indented and that means that they live with table number 1.
And so
That means,
you in general, you just have to worry about the table, but you should check to make sure those other ones are there.
yeah, because you're not actively picking up every menu in every chair, but the way that this worked is there was a table with 2 menus and the chairs flipped on and the actors brought the table on.
Yeah.
And it's one of those ways to also kind of notate that it lives in something else. So like if there's props that have to go into a purse, those are listed as separate props, but they have to somehow be tied to that purse, which
Contained.
is one of those like little things that it takes you a while to find your signature. Um,
Yeah. And to figure out like how to notate that so that other people recognize it.
mhm.
And it's sheets like this that like remind you like this is why good paperwork makes good shows. And we have no idea about that because much like a script, an audience doesn't necessarily see the paperwork behind all of
Oh,
this.
please
Like,
don't look at my paperwork if you're coming to see the audience. You will.
yeah, no,
It's probably not that pretty.
yeah, no, exactly. Also, I noticed there's a photo in
Yeah,
here.
that
That
was
was
a
the door.
photo just to like kind of explain what the setup of the show was. That is the
Ah,
Berlin Wall.
I love that it's just that one flat.
It is just one flat. They said the Berlin Wall falls, and then the actor just pushes it over. It was really funny. In case you couldn't tell, this was a comedy.
Oh, it's
Um,
gotta be. With these dolls on the ground, it's gotta be. Also, I
um,
will say it kind of does look like the set of Assassins with Classic Stage Company. Like if you were to Google their revival, like running right now, the
yeah,
floor
didn't
kind
they
of looks like
do
it.
the American flag floor?
Yeah, they did the American flag floor, and it's 3/4 thrust, and like they have like
Ooh,
a deck above them in the back. So like this looks very similar. You'll have to look at it after we're done here, but no,
yeah.
it's fun to see how similar it is, but in the best way.
Yeah, no, this floor was actually designed by our scenic designer, who just actually graduated from Carnegie Mellon, Katie Pazowski, who is
Good
a
for
wonderful human.
amazing.
And there's like projection screens on the walls that we use throughout the show, and two little like desks that you would use as like a news anchor. But
Oh, I
I
love
I threw a photo in just for an example of like what the show kind of looked like.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to give context when like you and I can sometimes look at a piece of paperwork and go like, okay, I can sort of understand what's going on here. But for someone who has zero context, it's like this is what this paperwork is talking about.
And I unfortunately don't have any photos of Lego Star Wars Lucky Stiff.
Dang
I
it.
lost all of the Zoom footage when the new semester turned
Oh,
over.
that's okay. That's okay. But you know what we are going to look at now? Some really fun props. So I'm so excited. I'm going to start with Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah,
I
go
think
for it.
that one, as I know now, is the earlier one. I figure we look at the drawings first, of course.
Yeah, go for it.
So we have your drawing here.
Yeah, so this was my first ever like rendition of the rose. It was just kind of like my original concept drawing that I then started to kind of add in diagrams. I did everything paper and pencil, like very old school, and
Yeah.
like tried to work it out just on paper because I'm scared of computer rendering. Um, and as I was like working through things, I just notated little things on the sides, like different bits and close ups, and then my materials list and like a map of how I want the petals to fall and like how they should be situated.
Yeah, and also that you were able to create this drawing in high school to like notate, oh yeah, I probably need a 1/4 inch copper pipe, and this is how the tubing should go. Is so cool to me that you were able
Thank
to
you.
put put words to that because I would have been like, I don't know, it turns on somehow.
And
And
then that's a more practical drawing. That was actually me just practicing like proportional scale drawings.
right,
Um, am I gonna say it was made entirely for my college portfolio? Maybe. But
you
it's
gotta
like,
have something.
yeah, it was the like official rendering of what I wanted the prop to look like.
Right. And I think we have two more pictures before we actually get to see the beauty that is the finished
Yeah.
product.
This one is just kind of an enlargement of the smaller sketches that I did on the first one, which is the cross section of the base, the way I wanted the stem to work, the petals, and then the materials list again.
Yeah, and I always forget like how important the petals are specifically with the rose because like they have to be able to functionally fall and like depending on how far back you are, you need to be able to see that.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah, and that's the table I designed for it. So the way it worked is our west wing of the set, I think that's the Beast's wing in Beauty and the Beast,
that sounds right. Yes.
was just like up on a high platform. And between you and me, this table got cut during Tech Week, and I was really mad about it. But we're gonna pretend that it was still in the show, and I did all this hard work for something. But I designed this table where essentially the rows, so I'm gonna go top to bottom. You have the rows sitting on this little pedestal base, with an open back, and then that sits on top of a specially designed table that has PVC tubes running through the core that connect all the way underneath the set piece. Um, and so that way a bunch of wires could run all the way from under the set piece to
Mm.
the rows at the top and could be like just pulled and operated by a technician underneath.
Yeah.
Um, because like I said, I did the entire rows for $50, so there was nothing crazy, nothing fancy put into it. So the entire thing was just a straight shot from the top of the rose with wires all the way down to underneath the set, and the
Mm.
petals had the wires just like woven into the fabric because I used
Mm.
fake petals. And if you pull the wire, there's nothing holding the petal up and it
Gotcha.
falls.
That's smart. That makes sense. Absolutely.
And then it lit up a little bit. I had like LED tape before LED tape was cool, and that hooked into the light board. So it was completely DMX controlled, and they could actually like program it into the show.
And you were doing this in high school. Oh my god, I can't get over that.
A
But
lot of YouTube tutorials
of
and a
course,
lot of Pinterest research.
that makes sense. That makes sense. But here's the finished product.
Yeah, and
It's
unfortunately, I didn't Windex the dome before I took those photos, which was really unfortunate. But yeah, so you there's the LED light. It lights it all up and makes it all look kind of cool.
it's
And the next
gorgeous.
photo, that one's a little just bit more of a clear shot
Yeah.
of it. So the wires, I'm not sure if you can kind of see, but like the rose is a little bit separated from the stem right at the base.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
that's where it's kind of being held up by the wire. It runs through the stem, which is, as notated in my drawings, 1/4 inch copper tubing. Um, Specifically copper because I needed it to bend and I needed to be able to manipulate it.
Mhm.
Um, the dome is a vase from Home Goods.
Nice.
I saw it and I went, "That is exactly what I need. I'm buying it." And the rest of it's just made out of plywood.
That's so cool. And this is a really impressive prop, like, I gotta say. And, like,
Thank
it
you.
it means so much to the show as well that I can imagine that getting to watch the prop work opening night was so special.
It was really, really fun.
Oh my goodness. Okay, and now we get into a fun little, next part. We got some Sweeney
Yes.
Todd here.
Yeah, so Sweeney Todd, I was the props master, so I was in charge of the slit throat effect. So if you don't know Sweeney Todd, it's about a barber who kills people. Really fun, family friendly show. But again, I had the task of figuring out how to make the character's necks bleed on
Yeah.
stage every single night. So I drew up a couple different options because I had to like propose it to the director to get the funding, like to be allotted the money to be able to do it.
Mm,
So I came up with a couple of ideas. This one, which was not, I tested it, didn't even come close to working. It had a bulb hidden in the handle of the razor. So ideally, as you slit the throat, you
right.
compress the bulb and the blood comes out. I tried it, did not work.
Oh, we had something I think our prop master when we did Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson, couple years ago at Wagner, I think our prop designer had something to that similar effect.
Mhm.
Um, but it's a hard prop, like, it's
It's a hard one to figure out, and
yeah.
especially because they can't be, like, hooked up to anything, 'cause they have to move,
Yes.
and also we did have I did send a video in, I think, as well
Yes.
of
We'll
a
watch that
performance
at the end
video, but you'll see they actually slide down the chute, so they can't be hooked up to anything.
right.
This was my working design up until the day before final dress, where, I essentially made dickies if which are just like half shirts, like they're like bibs that
Yeah.
just like look like the collar of your shirt, where I hid tubing into like pointing down so that way like you run your throat across and the tubing has the blood in it and it just kind of drips down the shirt. Um what I did, if you see the 100 milliliter syringe hidden in the jacket, I actually had that hidden like right on their chests with a band. And what
Mhm.
would happen is like, oh, your throat gets slit. One hand goes to the neck like you're struggling, and the other just goes on your body and you're struggling, and with that movement, you can push down the syringe on your chest.
Right. Absolutely.
And it just dictates the different kinds of tubing because there's different tubing that makes it more flexible at different points. Kind of boring. I did a lot of plumbing research for that one. And then final dress, that last design did not work. So my director looked at me and went, "You have 24 hours to figure this out or it's getting cut."
Oh my gosh.
So I kept the same general concept, but the part that wasn't working is the blood was spraying out and not landing
Mm.
on the shirts because you can't see the blood spray out if you're in the 5th row, let
Yeah.
alone the balcony. So we needed it to get onto the shirt somehow. So I kept the same like syringe idea, but I hid the plastic tubing in the person's palm.
Mm.
So that way when they pressed down the syringe, the blood came shooting out of their hand and all over their neck and all over their shirt. And it was like still pretty low profile, out of the way. Um I went through, I'm a very pros and cons kind of person. And you can even see at the bottom, I went through and I was like, what worked and what didn't?
It's the problem solving aspect of the whole thing.
Yeah, so we figured out that wearing the barber's capes didn't work. So we cut that and we said, you know what? The audience isn't going to notice if we don't put a barber's cape on them.
I didn't when I first watched the video, to be honest with you. Didn't even occur to me.
Yeah, and because we had special guests as our killed off people
Mhm.
every single night. So sometimes we had our principal in the barber's chair, and I think he's the one in the video.
Oh my goodness.
But we didn't want to like keep them backstage hooked up to blood all day.
Right.
And so what they would do is watch the first act of the show, come backstage because we needed this set up for right in the second song, right after God That's Good. So we had to be able to set it up in about a 6-minute song on
Mm.
every single person who needed to get their throat slit.
Oh gosh.
Um, so it was something where the timing wasn't working, the tubing wasn't working, and we just had to adapt.
Absolutely. And that's a lot of what prop making is in many ways. And I know this is just another picture of
That was a
the
drawing board. It didn't work. That
that's
was
okay.
combining the two parts of two of the designs that just nope, scratch those.
Oh, we
That
have
was
the butcher's knife itself.
Yes, that was a butcher's knife that I made, not the razors. I actually didn't end up making the razors. Those are made by our technical director. But that was just a knife. I made that entirely out of plywood and I thought it was cool, so I put it in.
Absolutely. It looks good. Now
Um,
I found a good place because
yes.
obviously there's a fair amount of song here and we
Yes,
want to get to the
please, please
good part.
skip.
So, I think yes, about right here is where we need.
I think we shall not meet again, my Hilda, my sweet Joanna. You're gone and yet you're mine. I'm mine, Joanna. I'm mine.
And there it is. And there it is.
And that was our principal going down the chute. I
That's
will say
so
that was the
funny.
principal of our high school.
That's so funny because like I was watching the video, I'm like, wow, they're just like really rooting for this guy, huh? But no, it was so fun, and you could, and what's really cool is that you can, after looking at all the pictures and things like that, you see like, oh, that's where it's functioning. But also as an audience member, you're just gonna see him have his hand up here, and then when like he lets go, you're just gonna see all the blood, which is
And I'm so happy with how the blood turned out because I had to make my own.
right.
Because we had an actor with a corn allergy.
That makes making fake
So
stage blood very difficult. For those who may not know, corn syrup is often involved in creating.
corn syrup, corn starch,
Yeah.
sometimes cornmeal if you want chunky blood.
Ooh.
But my trick is Blue Dawn dish soap with a bunch of red food coloring and cocoa powder.
Interesting.
And it
That's
comes out of
really cool.
costumes.
Yeah, that's the nice part. Make things with soap because then it'll come right out.
Yeah.
I think our formula for Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson also had soap in it.
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember. I was wardrobe manager on that show, so it was very like,
So
don't
you
get
got the
blood
fun
on.
job of taking the blood out of everything.
It was very much of like, please don't get blood on anything else that doesn't need it. Like, we know which things get blood, so like, just don't touch the other ones, please.
And you can actually see in that video the Sweeney was like brushing his hand
Yeah.
on. He
On the
got blood all over him that night, like
Oh, no.
everywhere.
And he was like, well, sorry to costumes.
I think he came off stage and he was like, you guys might need to do an extra load of laundry tonight.
And you're like, I'm sorry. You're like, curse you.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun. But first, I'm going to touch on one more thing. You have a little bit of a jewelry business,
I
yes?
do.
How
Yes.
did you get into that?
So I have been arts and craftsy my whole life. Like I think when I was like 3, my parents just gave me a little kiddie table and said, "You can destroy this table." And like this is your arts and crafts place, and it was like a safe place for me to just make a mess.
Yeah.
And I started making jewelry probably when I was about 7, like just like beading things, and I had like a really baby how to make earrings kind of thing, and I didn't have my ears pierced, so I only made clip-ons. But I could like bead little dangle earrings, which was super fun. And then I got really bored during the pandemic and challenged myself to start using up all of my craft supplies that I still had
Oh, that's
from
a
when I was a
very fun
kid.
challenge.
And I said I can't buy more craft supplies until I use up the ones that I have, and that ended really badly because now I run an Etsy store and have probably like an entire minivan's worth of craft supplies in my apartment right now.
And I quickly just pulled up because you have some really stunning jewelry. It's like you don't just like make
Thank
jewelry, you
you.
like make jewelry. So I'm just gonna share my screen really quick so you can see that. Oh, it helps if I click the right thing. Hold on momentarily. But you have an Etsy shop too, so people can find this
I
very
do.
easily. I'm sharing your Instagram page
Yeah, go
for
for it.
your design, but like these are gorgeous.
Thank
Like
you.
they're so nice. Like people definitely need to check out your store. I mean, these are definitely like the Halloween ones, but you some really
Oh, the
cute stuff.
Halloween ones were super fun to make.
Oh, I can imagine. So like, look, all I'm saying is Black Friday is coming up. If you're
I
looking for those Christmas gifts.
The good thing about Etsy is I completely forgot about Black Friday and I can set up a sale very, very quickly. So thank you
So
for
like,
that reminder.
yeah, no problem. No problem. So like go check out their page on Instagram. I mean, I'm going to have them talk about their own Instagram in a second so that you can actually go follow them. But hey, look, Rey Hill Design. You can find their Etsy shop. Yay.
I
So,
also don't think we're seeing what you're seeing on your screen, by the way.
oh my god, I shared that whole thing and then I didn't share it to the screen like a silly. Thank you for telling me that.
It happens, technical difficulties.
It really does cuz like I'll press share and then I have to like manually put that on screen.
Gotcha.
So, let me do that one more time so that you can see it for realsies. Show on stream. There we go.
There we
There's
go.
the
There she
Instagram
is.
page. It's gorgeous.
Thank
Not just
you.
that, but you can see all the goodies now. But no, like the Halloween stuff is so much fun.
Those are my favorite era so far, and I need for it to be like a little bit further away from Halloween so I can then start wearing the Halloween earrings again without being like out of season, but still
Right.
being
You're like,
like
this is just
cool.
my aesthetic at this point.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun with this era, which was like the fairy whimsical type.
Yeah, no, I love these. These are stunning. I might have to like literally go check out your like Etsy page and be like, should I use these as Christmas gifts for people in my life?
Hey, if you're
I might
ordering anywhere from Etsy or anything, get your orders in early because we learned from last year the USPS hates the holiday season.
Absolutely. So definitely get your orders in quickly. But yeah, no, this is their Insta page. So yes, I'm glad I could quickly share that before.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
And then also, you're graduating soon. Ah!
Don't jinx it.
I know. But that's really exciting. That's so
Yeah,
exciting.
I'm graduating a year early, which is kind of crazy. I just got super bored during COVID and took way too many summer classes.
And you're like, well, I guess I'm done now.
A whole year early. Somehow. I don't know how.
Well, you're a very hard worker, so I'm like not surprised. I'm very not surprised. But yeah. Any other projects that are like in the works for yourself, or just sort of work
Right
and
now,
finishing up school?
right now is working and finishing up school. That's really all I've got. I really don't want to take on any more because I don't think I'm gonna have the bandwidth for it.
Yeah. Or as we said,
'Cause
you don't have the bones for it.
I don't have the bones for it sometimes.
We're changing the phrase having the spoons for things and changing it to having the bones for things, a la Noodles the pug. So
Yes.
yeah.
Our Lord and Savior, he lives in New York. I'm waiting to
I
have a
know.
Noodle sighting.
We gotta find Noodle the pug somewhere here in New York. We really do. We really do. This has been so much fun. And it's really cool
Yes.
because like we work together every Saturday, but like to actually be like, wait, how did you get into this? Like what are the things that you've done? It's been really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Where can we find you on the socials and things like that?
On social media, my personal is Rey, spelled like it is. I think I'm pointing at the right
Yep.
spot. Like the Star Wars character.
Yes.
BR Hill, Hill. And my Etsy Instagram is just Rey Hill Design.
Perfect. Amazing.
Yeah.
And then you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Lora_Marjoram. It's also my Twitter name or my Twitter name, my Twitch name. So if you're unsure as to how to spell my last name, you can find that there. I also have a website, www.loramarjoram.com. You can find this show at Overtures Show on Instagram. There is 2 S's. And you can find this on YouTube. Just search Overtures Show. All of my archived videos are going to be there. Twitch takes them down after a certain amount of time. So soon we'll start losing the first few episodes. So if you ever want to go back and watch those first few, they will always live on YouTube. So no worries there. I don't currently have a stream set up for next week. I'm in the middle of scheduling it, but as soon as I have information, I will be posting it on the Instagram page. So keep an eye out for that. And I think I have one more little tiny thing to promote for myself is that this upcoming Monday, I'm going to be a part of a cabaret at Super Secret Arts in Gowanus, Brooklyn. I'm going to be singing 2 songs. Come stop by. It's, I think, $20 or $25 for a subscription to see all their shows in a month. So stop by, say hello.
I'll be there.
Come see some musical performances and all that good stuff. But yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in and have a great evening. And we're going to end the stream. Bye.
Bye.